So welcome to Write with Impact, Amy.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. I know we've known each other on LinkedIn for several years now,
hmm
and I've seen what you've been doing. You've been writing a lot on your under your own name for Forbes
Yeah.
as a Forbes leadership contributor.
hmm
You've also written a lot on LinkedIn, which is my favorite place, as you know.
Me too.
And you've also done a ton of video. I remember when video opened up to the masses, which was a few years ago already. It's already been several
Yeah.
years. I believe you were a first mover and you went in right away.
I delayed 3 weeks, but yeah, I was part of that beta group. Somehow, I have no idea how I was part of that, but yes, I was there.
Right, right. So you've had a lot of success on multiple platforms as a writer and as a video celebrity influencer. I'm
Whatever
sure
we call that.
you're a video influencer.
Mhm.
So today I'd like to talk to you about writing, about your writing process and how you help clients. You're a social media ghostwriter,
Mhm.
and you help a number of clients, CEOs, C-level clients, to craft clickable, shareable social media posts. A lot of that on LinkedIn, which
Mhm.
is good. A lot of people are still on LinkedIn, and I'd love to ask you about that, and then also ask a little bit about your own writing process and your advice to others trying to become more productive and also more effective with their writing.
Great.
Good. Let's dive right in. But I've been talking a lot in this preamble, so why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do? Who are you?
What do I do? So I'm a social media ghostwriter, and usually people are like, "Oh, that's a thing." Yes, it is a thing. It's a very specific thing. But what I like to explain how I do this is I help leaders craft their stories to communicate and connect better by magnifying their reach and their impact. So the way that I work with leaders, and you mentioned a few of them, so C-suite, certainly founders, a lot of entrepreneurs. That really understand that they have something to say and they'd like to leverage the power and reach of social media to do it. But they either don't have the writing acumen themselves or they just simply don't have the bandwidth. And it's usually the latter. They're just like, it would take me far too long and I'm not sure what to do. So I work with them a monthly retainer basis. We have a weekly standing call of half an hour, um, sometimes less, just because they're that quick and we've worked together that long. It's easy. I know what they have to say in their voice. But it's unlike some people think. I think ghostwriting is that ghostwriter writes everything and the client is not involved and they just pay him and they pretend to be who that's not how I operate. So the ghostwriting I do with leaders is really about pulling out their stories. It's their words. It's 95% of it. It's their insights, their experiences, it's them, but I translate it, I listen to it, and I'm helped to shape that into a concise and compelling written post. And most often, they want to do that on LinkedIn, where they have 1,300 characters or about 200-ish words to do that. And surprisingly, and maybe this isn't surprising to you, people have a harder time writing something concise and shorter and to the point than they do writing a long article or something else, because I feel like they can go on and on and on and on. But you will lose people, you will lose their attention if you ramble, if you do that. So it's fairly easy for me, but it's one of those things that people have struggle with, particular leaders. So in having, all they have to do is show up and have a conversation with me, and I will turn that conversation, because I'll be asking questions and I'll be taking copious notes. I'll turn that into a post or two. And we always work, in their wheelhouse, something that they are expert in, because really what I'm doing is helping them share their thought leadership and bolster their personal brands. So when they share their wisdom, people come to associate those things they share about with them. And when they do it on a regular basis, that helps build up that currency of like, oh, okay, that person is an expert in there, and he always posts about this or she always talks about this. So I come to, it ups their know, like, and trust factor. So it certainly helps them that way.
Great. That's a great introduction to what you do. What would be, what are some of the things that work that you've seen work? Either that they do right, but what that you do right, that you help them do right.
I think the biggest thing is a lot of my clients are entrepreneurs and founders, and typically those people are full of ideas. lots of great ideas. And, but it's about executing on one idea. So in terms of writing, I will keep track of all those ideas and say, okay, that's great. That could be a future post. We could do this, but let's
Hmm.
focus on one. So I really help them focus
Hmm.
and have clarity around what is the one takeaway. So when I'm working with a client, that's always what I do is like, what do we want to say here? What do you want? What do you want to leave people with? What do you want them to take away from this post? Regardless of what I write and how we do it, what is important? What's that one thing? And that forces you to kind of stay in that lane, because it's very easy to go off on a tangent for my clients, and sometimes we'll just keep talking. And the thing that we thought we were going to write about, it turns into something else as they talk it through, because not surprisingly, a lot of my clients are what I call talkers, right? They think as they speak out loud. A lot of us don't do it that way. It's we think in our heads and then we write it down. So for the ones that are my clients and typically are that way, as we are talking, they'll be like, oh, no, no. Okay. Yeah, no, no. That's what I want the takeaway to be. So it helps them get a little clarity too, particularly because we are writing about their everyday life, their everyday world. It could have been a client meeting they had. It could have been something with their staff. It could have been dealing with a pandemic. It could be anything. And that's really what works best, by the way, is not. I think there is this misperception that on social media, you have to just share all the wins and you have to have this, I call it like the Instagram worthy, curated content that it's like only the good stuff, because God forbid you share anything that would portray you as someone who's made a mistake or had a supposed failure. But the opposite is true. People respond to humans, to imperfect people. And when you're a leader, of course, you've made mistakes. Everybody has, and you stumble. But the important thing is when you're sharing about that is to say, this happened, but this is how I found my way out. And something like that is really, it will endear you to other people, but they'll also come to see you as this human, like, okay, well, if Glenn could do it, and make his way through that, then so can I. And so you leave them with something that they connect better with you, because you're not somebody that's up on a pedestal, but you're imparting your wisdom, you're imparting your kind of, this is real, and that genuineness really translates well across social media, because we both know there are a lot of people that do the opposite. And sorry, you're going to alienate people, or they're going to keep scrolling. I would much rather, me personally, read and share something that is, real world, real life, real talk, than just another like made up, thing about, oh, it was the worst this and that, and I'm great, and this happened, or, the models and bottles, and like, everything's so wonderful. Aren't I great? And that's the thing too, with each post is really about serving, not selling. So the kind of writing I'm doing is not a sales campaign. It's not designed to, oh, I'm going to talk about your latest offering or your product or whatever. It's not that at all. And some people are like, well, wait a minute, what are you writing about then? That's very foreign to them to, share anything other than buy this, hire me sort of thing. But it's really about providing value. And the way you do that is you share your expertise. And I guarantee every person I've talked, they're like, I don't know if I have anything to share. How could my story and what I'm doing really impact anyone else? You always, always have an impact. And I've heard this, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Glenn, that you'll put something out there and it will impact at least one life, and they will tell you maybe privately or months from that post. And they'll say, and this happens a lot, I'm sure to you too. I've been following you for a while.
Right.
And this happens to my clients too. I've been following you for a while, and wow,
Yeah.
I really like,
Yeah.
I like the way you think. I like the way you move through the world.
Right.
I like your perspective. So depending on my client's
That that
goals,
sounds a little bit like a stalker.
it's not, I hope not,
I'm just
but
I'm just I'm just joking. I'm just joking. First of all, secondly, I do exactly the same thing to other people that I admire, that
right.
I follow on LinkedIn or elsewhere. I just
Hmm.
I just wrote a note exactly like that yesterday, I swear, and I was genuine. So anyway, I'm just joking.
Yes. And that's the thing. And that's super meaningful for the
Yeah,
person who's putting the content out, because often they have no idea. And they think, really, am I just
that's right.
shouting into the abyss and putting out content? But the more you do it, the more regular you do it, the more consistent you are. I mean, my big three, which apply to my clients, apply to myself, apply to anyone else out there. It's clarity, consistency, and discipline. So clarity of message, and keep it to one, and know what you're trying to say and be very intentional with that. And then consistency, make sure you do it regularly. And the discipline is to stay in your wheelhouse, because and I always use this example, if I started posting, if you saw me posting about blockchain or cryptocurrency, you'd probably be like, what? What is Amy talking about? So you can have many interests.
Because I don't understand any of that, I would believe you.
Okay. Well, I've built up enough of that trust factor, I
Yeah,
guess, because I
exactly.
post
Seriously,
regularly.
I don't. What do I know? I don't understand that.
I don't really either, but I use that example only because it's so foreign from what I do. It's kind of stay
I
in
know.
my lane in terms of doing that, because that
Yeah,
repetition
yeah.
and that discipline of staying in the 1, 2, maybe 3 buckets where you are expert, that they call it zone of genius, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
What you want people to come to associate with you.
Right.
That's the easiest way to, what do you want people to think of when they think of Glenn? It's like, oh, okay, he's got a podcast and he's a writer and he's this, all these things. But if you
Hold
weren't
on.
doing that,
Continue.
and he's amazing. He's wonderful at everything he does.
I just
Wow, the guy can do no wrong. But
okay.
but
Exactly.
it's
Thank you.
it's
Thank you.
it's true, is that if you put too much out there, if you know veer too far from your supposed expertise, you're going to confuse people. And if you
Oh,
confuse them, you will lose them. They will keep scrolling, they'll ignore you, they'll disconnect or unfollow you if they're like, I don't know, what this person doesn't know what they want or what they're about. So why should I bother giving them my attention, which is, between attention and trust, right? There are the two things that Seth Godin said. That's sort of the currency.
for someone looking to try to start or pick up the pace of their writing, and I think there's a lot of people out there. A lot of people trying to start. I know some people are trying to
Yeah.
start. They say they want to start writing.
Mm-hmm.
They get excited by it, but and which is great.
Yeah.
What's your parting advice for them? Because not everyone can be like you, as productive as you. But maybe hopefully they can learn from you from this discussion today, which I really appreciate. You sort of
Mm-hmm.
shared a lot of your methodologies and your approaches and the way you think about it. I think it's wonderful. So what's your final piece of advice?
I think, going back to what I call the power trifecta, right? It's the clarity, consistency, and discipline. I think when you're writing, be kind to yourself. It's not going to be perfect. There'll be times where what you write and you publish, it won't be your best, but you have to have a balance of that. In order to have something be your best, you have to have something be your worst. And it's okay to be somewhere in between, because usually it is. So keep writing, keep at it. I think the other thing is, when you're writing, it's that one clear takeaway, and think about your audience. Think about it. When you make it easy for them to understand what you were trying to say, then they can take some bit of value, some little nugget away from them. Then you have done your job well. And I think, if you confuse them, you lose them. So don't do that. Keep it clear, keep it concise, keep it to one thing. And I would say too, it's like, if you're hiding in the shadows, stop hiding, right? Just put yourself out there.
That's very inspiring. No, thanks a lot. And so how can people reach you?
Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn as much as Glenn is, so you can find me there. You can visit my website, which is amyblaschka.com. I am also on Twitter and Instagram too, and Clubhouse sometimes. And I would love it if you would subscribe to my newsletter, which is called Illuminate Me. And Glenn mentions it's on Substack. It's amyblaschka.substack.com. And all of those links, I'm sure, will be in Glenn's show notes, but certainly you can find them all on my LinkedIn profile, as well as on my website. So I'm everywhere. You can find me all over the place, but primarily on LinkedIn as sort of my bread and butter and favorite platform.
That's right. And how do you spell your last name?
B as in boy, Laschka. And Amy is just AMY. Simple.
Okay, that's great. No, Amy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so thrilled that you could join me on Write with Impact.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd love to have you on again sometime. And maybe at sometime we could do this live on LinkedIn.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I would be game. I would be game for that. That'd be great. Well, thanks for having me today, Glenn. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing it again soon, hopefully.
Good. Thanks.
Mhm.